many years, and it's an honor to introduce a doctor who's so committed to her patients and who wishes to make a change in the lives of patients and therapy. So Dr. Kathryn Wagner from the Kennedy Krieger Institute will talk on animal models and progress towards clinical trials. So, thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Good morning. It's wonderful to see so many of you here again this year. And I'd like to start just by thanking you for being here, and also thank the families who participated in the genetic study yesterday. You always show up. I mean, it's one of the things that I say all the time, that you couldn't ask for a better population, a better community. You're always committed, motivated, lining up, and yesterday was no different. Thank you very much. So, yes, I've been asked to speak about animal models and the progress towards clinical trials, and I'm going to start with the bad news, which you already know, that there hasn't been enough progress on clinical trials. And this is a slide showing drug development and the phases that drugs go through in order to reach FDA approval, and the number of years that it takes. And this is where you and I want to be with an FDA-approved drug. And as you heard yesterday, this is where we are. We are in mostly in vitro screening, and there's a hell of a long way from here to there. So when I gave a similar talk this would have been in Las Vegas in 2010, the FSH Society meeting. Prior to giving the talk, I did a search on clinicaltrials.gov, where every clinical trial has to be registered in the U.S., and a lot of international studies also do register. And that showed that despite there being dozens of trials for other muscular dystrophies and other neuromuscular diseases, there were only 3 studies registered for FSH, and one of them was our national registry. And so, this was really shocking to many in the audience, including Alan Brown, a member of the FSHD fan club. And then prior to giving a similar talk in Atlanta, I did a search, and now there were more than 100 trials for some of the other neuromuscular disorders, and only 5 for FSH. Actually, only 5 studies. Only one of them was a drug study, which Dr. Bellehu talked about yesterday, the antioxidant trial in Europe. So, by that point, people are getting dismayed. And now I did a search prior to coming here, and the list is getting a little bit longer, but this is additive, not exponential, which we would hope. Only 9 studies, 0 drug studies, and that just kind of flabbergasts us. Particularly when I did a search this morning, ALS actually has a lower prevalence than FSHD. It has 259 studies going on right now, compared to 9 FSH. So, obviously, it just blows my mind. So, what am I going to talk about 2 years from now? Well, in 2 years from now, I think it's possible that we could have a clinical trial on a non-specific treatment to improve weakness. And if you were in Atlanta, I believe it was in Atlanta, Cytokinetics came and talked about their troponin activators, and we're continuing to speak with Cytokinetics. There's a group of people, including Jeff and myself, who have been talking with Cytokinetics about appropriate outcome measures, and I think that is still a possibility. They've done their first clinical trials in ALS and myasthenia gravis. Myostatin inhibitors, I think, is certainly worth another trial in FSH muscular dystrophy. As many of you know, there was a trial with a drug, a neutralizing antibody to myostatin by Wyeth. The name of the drug was Myo29, and that had many different types of adult muscular dystrophy. This was I don't know, maybe 7 years ago now, and there were consistent positive trends in the FSH subgroup, but there were too few in the higher dose group to really say anything conclusively. And many companies now have interesting myostatin inhibitors. Between Dan and I, we've probably talked to all of them and encouraged them to look at FSH muscular dystrophy. Novartis has an interesting drug. The global head of muscle research, David Glass, is on the advisory board of the FSH Society, so we'll have to ask him why the first trial with his myostatin inhibitor is not in FSH but in inclusion body myositis. And usually the response to why not FSH has been, well, we don't understand the pathophysiology, we don't have the animal models, but clearly that's not true because the first disease population for the Novartis drug was inclusion body myositis, which the pathophysiology is not understood at all. It's not clear whether that's even a genetic versus inflammatory disease, and there's no good animal model. So that's disappointing, but there are several other companies, and I hope that there will be another myostatin inhibitor trial in FSH. Yesterday you heard about more specific approaches directed at FSH pathophysiology, and these might be within the 3 to 5 year time frame. So the Wellstone group has been working with Genzyme, and we're very excited about some of their approaches to knock down DUX4, and I believe the Seattle group is working with GSK, but